be mirrored exactly in terms of who is playing like the shaman, who is playing the hunter, whatnot. We're going to see potentially some of these important tech cards come into play. Not to mention a couple of other spicy choices that we'll mention. One of them we didn't, for example, talk about. SilverName has Revolve in its actual shaman list. With people have been kind of weaving that in and out and kind of wondering how good it is Revolve. We'll see. Potentially has a powerful swing turn with Desert Hair and cards like that. So with that first game is ways we have the opening look at Mulligan's SYF with a full mull. Definitely feeling a little bit sad for his fellow countryman Xiao T, who just dropped. SYF, of course, has big shoes to fill, not only as the lone representative, but also as a person very closely associated with our previous world champion, VK Lion. Lion has credited SYF as one of the most important people to her success in competitive Hearthstone last year and throughout her career. And so we'll see if he can live up to that billing. Usually that is a early indicator, TJ, of people who have performed really well. Lots of champions have come onto the stage and said, these are the people that helped me prepare for this tournament, and they end up becoming the contenders in years to come.
Yeah, one other cool thing to mention before we dive into the game is that if SIF were to win, then it would mean that we have one representative from each region in the top 4, which would be pretty cool, right? Semifinals with all 4 regions still with the horse in the race. So that's a nice little story. But getting started here, SYF, not really a great opening. Zephyr's picked up off the top, but secrets, especially when you're running a secret light list, it's just not a great hand. Kill command as well. Okay, Bone Thrower Brawl off the top, that's a good one. But especially against Evolved Shaman, that they're going to get off to, or they're going to have a pretty powerful turn around that turn 5. Even if it's not Bogspine Knuckles, right? Derailed Coaster, if they've been holding on to resources. SilverName always has the threat of the Revolve. So it can get a little bit dicey.
Yeah, it can certainly get a little bit awkward here, but SilverName has to figure out how he wants to layer his ability to tempo out and consecutively string out threats. The problem with the Lightning Bloom and the Boxby Knuckles is, one, this turn he'd be missing damage and getting only a 2 to 3 drop, but his follow-up turn on turn 4 is overloaded by 2 mana crystals, which means that he can't even really get the Desert Hair or anything else meaningful out to evolve. So he'd be evolving his 3 mana minion off the Direwolf Alpha and potentially a Cage Match Custodian. But the good news about that is that it gives him a good turn 5, right? He has the ability to play the Derail Coaster and the Boxby Knuckles number 2. But by then, is he not doing enough high impact things? And I think this is what's going through SilverName's mind right now, because most people understand that Lightning Bloom, Boxby Knuckles is the most powerful thing on average that you can do with the Shaman deck.
So honestly, I wouldn't have minded Lightning Bloom Derailed Coaster. Okay, never mind, because that is an insane 3-drop.
Yeah, it's super hard to kill. Yeah. SYF would either have to play, mitigation strategies or finding a way to just directly remove it through Zephyrs, and I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, but back to kind of the previous topic, Derailed Coaster would have cleared off the minion, left a 3/2 and the Direwolf on board uncontested. That's enough to contest the next board, and then you go the Cage Match Custodian to follow it up with 2 mana available, and then in your natural turn 5 you play Boxby Knuckles, and assuming he has board, which he should, right? Because the Direwolf plus the Cage or the Derail Coaster could have contested everything. That was one option, but that left SYF an opening to come back if he had, say a weapon like Rinling's Rifle or something to kind of pick up the board, or even Zephyrus. So I like this play because it keeps pushing the initiative for SilverName.
Yeah, very much so. And, it's really not too much about rushing your opponent down with damage. There's been aggressive Shaman lists that we see that want to end that game because they have additional burn in the deck. That's not necessarily what SilverName's strategy is. When you have Sea Giant and you have, cards like Harrison Jones, you're kind of anticipating using these situational cards more to try to build up that board and slowly gain those incremental advantages, and then go for a decisive swing to try to kill. So we'll see if SilverName ends up going for that. First, has to kind of decipher what secret it is. I think he has a very strong idea that it is Freezing Trap, because it's kind of weird to play a Snake Trap and nothing else here, while holding on to the coin for SYF. So SilverName's getting some pretty weird signals from SYF, probably indicating that it is Freezing Trap. And if that's the case, he actually does have several ways to counterplay it. He could use Derail Coaster for a rusher that's not super impactful to bounce that back. He could use it to try to double dip on battle cries like Horde Pillager or even potentially Desert Hare moving on. But I think he's going to still try to prioritize the tempo, because that's what's really important against the Hunter. Hunter's not super good at clearing multiple minions. In fact, that's probably one of their weakest attributes as a class in general, and that's why they have to rely on cards like Zephyrs in the late game if they're super far behind to use it for their one source of area effect.
Yeah, usually their way to clear minions is to play bigger minions and protect them with secrets. That's pretty much it besides Zephyrs, so this type of situation can be very difficult. And oh man, Sif faced with still a very awkward spot. Wolpertinger Wriggling Horror Coin Snake Trap is like the most powerful play that he can make on board. Right, he'll put 2/2/2s, a 2/1, and then a Snake Trap up. It is using the coin, but the way this hand is working out, I think that might be necessary. The other play is to kill command this 2/5.
Oh, Bloodsail Corsair coming out?
Oh, yeah, Bloodsail Corsair. No, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm not super sold in this play is because he saw the Cage Match Custodian, there's another Boxbind Knuckles in hand.
Right.
But he knew that he disrupted SilverName's game plan on the previous turn because he kind of just played his stuff and didn't really do anything, was afraid of the Freezing Trap. So if that's still the case, then SYF is probably hoping that this is just going to disrupt his play again, force him to spend 5 mana on the Boxbind Knuckles, and then maybe he can come back.
Yeah, very much so. Again, very powerful pickup with the Sea Giant. It's not always very easily to be played, especially if your opponent catches wind on the fact that you want to build the board. But SilverName has the perfect amount of minion count, and he's able to place this 8/8 while being able to get full trades onto the board. SYF is in real big trouble right now.
Yeah,
because he knows about that Boxbind Knuckles, like you said. What do you really do? You just use Zephyr as one of your most powerful cards in the deck, and he draws the other secret. This is terrible position.
Is that every secret?
I mean, this game might feel over.
Yeah, that might be every secret. That is quite brutal. I like the hopefulness of the Zephyr's play. You know, maybe you force him to spend the full 5 mana on Boxbind Knuckles, and that gives you a chance to make things work. But, you know, even if he has kind of the perfect situation there, and SilverName does exactly what he wants, because he drew another secret off the top, like, there's just nothing. Zero follow-up. That was quite a brutal game for SYF.
Yeah, that's right. So that Shaman deck, you know, I peg it as one of those decks that are very feast or famine. Either you're really pushing a bunch of tempo that your opponent can't keep up with, or you just kind of draw very dead and it doesn't really feel like you can build up much. And you have to hope that in those late game scenarios, you're kind of trying to bargain with whatever. You're like, okay, if I get a taunt here, I can survive for maybe one turn and maybe I evolve into some chargers. And that's usually what you do. However, when your opponent draws like that on the Hunter side, it doesn't really matter what the Shaman does. The Shaman just had like a curve and they just placed a Sea Giant, and it really wasn't about the evolve at that point, right? We saw one evolve, which got a 2/5 taunt, and then from there, SYF was just too far behind.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I do feel like Evolve Shaman is probably one of the better matchups across the board for SilverName against any of SYF's decks. So I don't think that's as brutal, especially considering that I mentioned SilverName's probably a favorite even in the mirror matchup. I don't think that's what this matchup's going to come down to. The Highlander Hunter is, you know, probably where my eyes are going to be for both players, whether or not that can get a win through. So if we have a Highlander Hunter mirror, we need to be watching that one very closely, because whoever wins that, I think, is probably should be considered the favorite in the head-to-head. But we'll see what the player's going to queue next. I'm not sure if SYF wants to risk a hunter, Highlander Hunter mirror at this point, but I mean, when you're playing Conquest, it's really hard to tell either way, right? So.
Yeah, very much so. And so, the Shaman does feel like it's pretty well positioned to potentially get that win in this series. And you could see that two players, starting off with fairly straightforward decks. The question on my mind is this Warrior and seeing how, the Warrior can get wins in this head-to-head. And, if there's any matchup that they're specifically looking at. That's why I once again going to turn to that Highlander Hunter and see if we can get that ball rolling a lot better than we did last time. The good news for SYF is draw really can't get worse than it did in the previous game. Drawing all your secrets, without actual any tempo, and drawing Zephyrus is a recipe for disaster, especially against a tempo-oriented deck like that. You might be able to get away with it if your opponent's starting slow. Bomb Warrior, for example, starts slow, but that's not going to be the case because SilverName's turning to his own Highlander Hunter as well.
All right, well, SilverName's Highlander Hunter, incredibly similar. Looking at kind of the deck list side by side, it looks like they are one card different, or maybe a couple cards different. SYF does not play Unleash the Hounds. Instead, right. I believe plays an extra secret. And SilverName plays Open the Cages as a natural secret, whereas SYF does not. So when it comes down to it, they're quite mirrored back and forth. So not a huge amount of difference. They both run Weapon Destruction. They both run kind of the same top end with Dragonbane, Lorekeeper, Rinlings, and then Dino Tamer Brand. No Rhino in either list.
Yeah, that's right. The heavier secret package makes it so that there's more hits when you're playing some of these secret synergy cards like Face Stalker. But what really matters beyond anything else, besides cards number 28 through 30, is who can get that early initiative. And a lot of times, players do feel like whoever goes first tends to be the one in the driver's seat for a long time, unless they either falter or perhaps make a mistake. So many people who play these kinds of matchups that are very curve-oriented and pressure-oriented with Hunter feels like whoever goes first is in that distinct advantage. So if you're just making your early bets here, gotta say that SilverName it got off on the right foot. That being said, he did not actually have an early curve. He skipped his turn 1, only had his Imprisoned Thelma on 2, and his turn 3 is okay, sort of. You can set up the Eagle Horn Bow, for example, and try to make your Face Stalker really, really powerful in the following turn. Then you're not able to play one of the best cards in your deck in Rinling's Rifle. So this is a little bit awkward right now for SilverName, kind of getting this similar awkward draw that SYF did, although I feel like he's got way more game plan than his opponent did the previous game.
Yeah, it's actually an incredibly tough turn because SilverName doesn't want to play his Eaglehorn Bow because he wants to play that Rinling's Rifle. But then he's trying to plan out his turns from there, right? Let's say he plays Secret here, Rinling's Rifle on 4, and then Phase Stalker plus Hero Power on 5, and then Lorekeeper Hero Power on 6, and then Bran on 7. That doesn't feel like a strong curve because he's super reliant on what secrets he gets, and there's almost no minion development in that curve. So he's completely susceptible to SYF going for more like wide board states. So I was honestly looking at like Eaglehorn Bow on 3 and then Phase Stalker Hero Power on 4 and wait for the Rinling's Rifle to kind of see what secrets you're pulling from the Phase Stalker and try and get some semblance of minion presence on board. That was where my head was, but SilverName decided to just get the Snake Trap out of the way because it seems like he really wants to get Rinling Rifle or Lorekeeper Pull Kill down on 4 and doesn't want to override the Eaglehorn Bow.
Yeah, SilverName getting that 5 damage to face, by the way. Potentially, a really impactful moment there because the Imprisoned Thelma catches up SilverName in the race. And that damage trading back and forth ends up becoming a really difficult position because the moment one player feels like they have to start trading it feels like that player, from their perspective, that they're going to lose, right? And they're trying their best to hopefully either their opponent miss or get fortunate. In this case, SYF, he's been saving this tour guy. He's got the Dragon Bane ready. This is going to deal 5 damage, and there's no real bad targets wherever this lands for the Dragon Bane. And gets it onto the Imprisoned Felmaw, which stops the ability to kill the Dragon Bane on board. SilverName does have his draws guaranteed in terms of a certain mana cost order with the Lord Keeper Polkelt. So he won't really have the playable card this turn, but he does have the ability to play his Zephyrs to try and disarm the situation here.
I mean, what would it even be in this situation? Shadow Word Pain for Zephyrs if he wanted to go for Zephyrs?
We have perfect information. We know it's Snake Trap. So SilverName bumps the Dragon Bane and plays Zephyrs. It'll offer you an Arcane Explosion that you can use to clear off the board.
Yeah, but
the problem is then SilverName's giving charges to the weapon, and he's still going to be in a situation where he doesn't feel comfortable with the amount of damage that he's taken. It might be Shadow Word Pain and just ignore the board. Seems that's also a possibility. Fan of Knives, not really what he's looking for. Although that would have been interesting as well. I guess if he had gone for that line that we talked about, which is like to try to win the board and disarm everything, then he probably would have been taking that Fan of Knives. But this just seems way stronger in terms of like what you want to be doing as Hunter, and he has a Dynatamer brand, so SYF feels like he's counting down from 13 at this point. Oh, okay, is that kind of right, TJ?
I mean, I love this because. Let's say he Hero Power here and hits. He brings SilverName down to 6, which means Zephyrs plus Fireball next turn is lethal. He might.
It looks good. Is there any way that SilverName could disrupt that from his perspective?
He's already played Zephyrs, so I don't think so. This is one of the decks where there's not many secrets that are randomly generated. Rinling's Rifle is one of them, but honestly, there's no secret that would stop it in this case.
Okay. I guess in his mind, Explosive Trap here makes sense to stop the amount of pressure, and then he could try and threaten Dynatamer Brand that way, because he could push 7.
Yep.
But yeah, it does look like right now SOF has like the guarantee, and there's not really much they can do. So well set up by his end, and can really tell that Zephyrs is the real key to making sure that these late game scenarios, and yes, turn 5, turn 6 sometimes is late game for Hunter. These late game scenarios for this deck can close out without a sweat. Because without that Zephyrs, like what would SYF be doing in this position? Not much.
He'd probably be dead, because I believe there's an Explosive Track active. He wouldn't have a board. If he didn't kill him this turn, Dynatamer Brand would guaranteed come out next turn and kill him. So,
right.
Nicely set up there. Like the kill command to face, and nicely played. And again, I said the Highlander Hunter mirror, because Highlander Hunter against the other two decks seems like it might have some difficulties, as we saw against the Evolved Shaman. Winning the Highlander Hunter mirror is actually quite big, because in my opinion, that it gets the weakest deck off the board, out of the way, whereas SilverName now still has to find a win with it. So it's tied up, but
no, it's true.
Looking at the matchups, maybe
potentially the case that we might see yesterday, right? We saw Hunter struggle a lot throughout the day during the initial matches. It just felt like Hunter wasn't really getting it done, quite frankly. And despite the stats being so nice for Hunter on paper, especially on ladder, I think that came as a surprise for many people, because they felt like the Hunter's performance should have been much stronger, and the field with people bringing other aggressive decks, Hunter seems to be doing okay against on paper, and then in practice, it's definitely been struggling a lot. But then again, it's a Hunter mirror. Someone has to win, TJ. They can't both possibly lose. And so we'll see whether or not this best of 3 now with that Hunter and Shaman limit on both sides here, or on one of the sides. We'll see if that ends up being that difference maker that you mentioned. SYF's going to turn to the Evolved Shaman for game number 3.
Yeah, and this Evolved Shaman's a little bit different than most of the field. Obviously, We did see Shao Ti bring something similar, but it's not so much running the like full-on evolve package and like with revolves and with animated broomsticks to be able to rush your evolved minions to be able to clear board. It's more about prioritizing early game tempo with Storm Strike and with Serpent Shrine Portal. A lot of times, like the turns, 3, 4 before the box by Knuckles comes online for Evolve Shaman, that's kind of a weak point. And I feel like this deck is kind of built to shore up that weak point, where you know that you always have strong plays. It does give up some board presence in the super later stages of the game, and its reload potential and its ability to fight back on board is limited, but it doesn't fall behind quite as easily as the other Evolve Shaman. Against Hunter, I think that this is a positive. You have more things to play in the early game. You're not taking as much damage, so that's a good thing for the matchup. But otherwise, it's still Evolve Shaman, so.
Yeah, but Evolve Shaman can do some wild things if they get that board, if they even get that weapon. I guess we'll have to find out if that's the case. For now, SilverName off to a reasonable start. The deck has so many one-mana minions that it's a very strong likelihood you do end up getting it. SYF finds the box by Knuckles off the top of his deck. Now, the problem is the second condition, which is, do you have good quality minions to actually go for the evolve? So you could set up Lightning Bloom and try to win back the board that way, but usually you need a little bit more besides that. It's just a piece of a combo. So he ends up going for the Yanara Storm Crash, and using it defensively is not something that I was anticipating a lot of coming into this weekend, and it looks like right here it ends up being really strong.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. Being able to fight for tempo this aggressively on ice. Will Zephyrs give Soulfire here? Would that even be worth it?
Probably not. And I think SilverName might have to concede part of the board. The good news is that SYF only has 1 mana next turn, right? Because of the Lightning Bloom. So he could theoretically instead take a time to set up the board, maybe hero power the Storm Crash preemptively, and then try to set up for some way to contest it later on.
Okay, so I suppose you can go hero power and then Wolpertinger and push the Dwarven Sharpshooter face. No, because then Zephyrs gets to trade over the Dwarven Sharpshooter, leaving it at 2 health, leaving the Inara 2 health, and just attack both the Wolpertingers and clear the board completely. Maybe it's just hero power then. The next turn goes Zephyrus to get a 1-mana spell to clear it off with the Intrepid Initiate.
Right.
Yeah, I think honestly think
either
that's
way,
the play.
Yeah, either way, SYF is going to not have a play this turn.
Yeah.
And, Storm Crash kind of working out here. This ends up being very clever. It's not something that, again, we thought was very intuitive because of the way it interacts with Box by Knuckles. You don't really get repeated turns of use if you're on an Evolve train. But that's not really what SYF is using it for, and I do find that to be quite interesting. SilverName can go for that play that we were talking about and eliminate the Storm Crash right now. Can even use Soulfire to activate the Intrepid Initiate spell burst to gain +2 attack.
Your wish is my suggestion.
I wonder what else it would offer you besides those cards. Oh, just Holy
Turn
Smite.
5 tempo plays.
Yeah, because we're thinking about the 4 health in the previous turn with the Dwarven Sharpshooter, but Holy Smite now dealing 3 damage to a minion, but that was a change, of course, earlier this year.
All right, so I guess just you're looking for devolving missiles here. He didn't play spell last turn, and no spell. In hand,
Forked Lightning would have been really powerful too.
Fork Lightning would have been good. It just would have delayed the Box by Knuckles again. But I guess if you Fork Lightning, go Desert Hair next turn and then into Box by Knuckles.
Right. Yeah, I think the most important thing is to keep Hunter setting up, right? Like keep the Hunter from being able to establish a big board and prevent them from being able to snowball onto you, because the Hunter is really good at leveraging existing minions on board to put pressure on your life total, and then every single draw for the rest of the game is a big threat. So, Torn probably too expensive, doesn't really have many spells in the deck. Sold a Murloc. He doesn't really have a board whatsoever, so it just makes sense that's not either of those two. Okay, SilverName gets offered a pretty decent pack of secrets. I am curious about Snipe because it does end up, stopping things like the Dread Corsair. But what do you think, TJ?
Yeah, I think Snipe disrupts a lot of the plays that SYF could make on turn 5. Like you mentioned, the Dread Corsair. Pack Tactics, I guess, does something similarly where if he plays Bogspine Knuckles and wants to attack into a minion, it kind of wastes the charge. But the other thing that Pack Tactics does is kind of replace the minion on board, which still lets Mogu math work out for the Evolved Shaman. But SilverName, I guess, is not so much worried about disrupting Sif's plays. He's more worried about just trying to work with what his hand is giving him. Because he needs to kill Sif, and his hand is nothing. So he realized that he kind of needs to create more minions. Because let's say SYF plays Derailed Coaster here or something and gets 4 minions, and he played Snipe. The Derailed Coaster gets hit, but his board gets cleared. So that's probably a... Oh, he doesn't even play... What? He doesn't play Derailed Coaster. So I don't... I still think I like the Snipe better, but I think I will say that he's trying to make sure that he has minions on board is what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I think he's just looking at his hand and saying, I don't really have much besides this board, and I really need it to stick. So, SilverName says that if you end up trying to attack my board, I'm going to still have momentum to keep pushing damage. The second layer of that is, Pack Tactics is not easy to activate for SYF with the 0 board state situation. So it does end up complicating a little bit more of how trades go down. SilverName, of course, we talked about how his hand was extremely light in terms of threat levels, and just going to play Freezing Trap in the Whoopentinger. And now SYF finds a Sludge Slurper to fill out his curve, can use the Faceless Corruptor here to stop the Freezing Trap from having higher impact, and be able to disarm more of these secrets while answering the board. 17 is not the most amount of life. Oh, finds a Titanic Lackey as well to give Taunt. Can't really do both, though, with the Faceless Corruptor and the Titanic Lackey.
Yeah. So having the Faceless Corruptor go into the Freezing Trap at least lets this Black Knight attack and keep a higher cost minion on board. It also means he can clean up a lot more of the board to get rid of these 2 higher attack minions and just leave the 2 1/1s. So it works out quite well for Sif in the end. It's just he's still not furthering his own game plan. He still has a full cost Bogspine Knuckles in hand. And he's just getting kind of whittled down and hasn't really been able to put meaningful pressure onto SilverName yet. So now we're getting into that territory where all of a sudden Dino Tamer Brand off the top, and Sif is 1 turn away from dying. So the Titanic Lackey is the kind of the one saving grace here. With Zephyrus out of the way and a Titanic Lackey in hand, as long as he has a turn to set up Bogspine Knuckles and then can get a high-cost minion evolved and taunted, I think he should be in an okay spot here.
Yeah, and SilverName goes for the Acidic Swamp, who's kind of recognizing that he needs minions on the board. It's not about the Battle Cry activating to shut down his opponent's weapon. That would work really well if the game was more even, but right now the game is quite lopsided into a specific direction of SilverName is all in, and he needs to get that aggression in because he recognizes that he's out-resourced. So the longer the game goes from this spot, the less likely here that SilverName's going to get that win. Tempo is king from this perspective of SilverName. And then from SYS point of view, is this clearance to start finding an opportunity to dump some of those resources and not play as greedy. You don't need Mogu Flesh Shaper, for example, to always hit that evolve. Maybe you just use it to stay alive and then find Box by Knuckles on instead the Pitmaster.
Oof. So, SYF could have gone Pitmaster, taunt the Pitmaster, and then Mogu. Because the Mogu at that point would have cost 2, because he would have played 3 total minions. This is sick.
But SYF just found a Serpent Shrine portal and has a Box by Knuckles ready to go. The only way this could potentially backfire is if this Witchy, or this was Witchy Lackey, the Titanic Lackey turns into a Doomsayer, TJ.
Yeah.
It could be catastrophic.
He just needs a 2-turn lethal setup. That's not enough.
It's close.
And there's no taunt, so Diner Tamer Bran off the top. Still an out for SilverName.
That's
This is
true.
11
That's true.
damage on board plus the Box by Knuckles, which is 15. He needs some type of charge damage, which would come from the Novice Engineer upgrading into a Wolf Rider, or if he plays a Totem into Bluegill Warrior wouldn't work.
Okay.
Pitmaster to Corkin Elite.
Yeah, or you just set up taunts, right? Like that's another thing that we weren't really necessarily. I didn't really necessarily bring up, which is that SYF did have a taunt on the board. And
Yeah,
did give it
gave
up.
up the taunt.
We'll see.
Looking for charge damage.
No,
Nope,
no
no
taunts
taunt.
either. There's still an out. Wait, he can Lightning Bloom and Totem for the
You
1
do
in
it.
4 taunt totem.
You 100% do it. There's absolutely no reason not to. You have lethal next turn. There's no way. SilverName has no Zephyrus. Dino Tamer Brand is the only way he can win.
Yeah, agreed.
There's
Agreed.
not
And I
gonna be
think
any more
for
turns in
reason,
this
too, he held on to the Lightning Bloom, right? You don't evolve the totem for this very reason.
Yep. Ooh.
Doesn't get it.
Dino Tamer Brand. Oh. And
I don't think
Misdirection's
it's
not
enough. Yeah. Hunter Secrets are great, but even if it was misdirection, there's no possible way to do it. SYF Shaman barely survives, and SilverName concedes. And now that SYF 1 game away from going to the top 4, you kind of talked about it, and you called it, TJ. The Hunter is struggling right now. It's been losing a lot of games thus far. I believe Hunter's actually lost every game in this series.
It has.
And it also lost a mirror, but that's going to happen. And now we come down to the point where it could end up getting swept aside here, as SilverName does still have to get that Hunter, and he does have that Warrior remaining as well. So even if he does get the win with the Hunter, he has to win a mirror.
Yeah, and the Hunter, I feel like this matchup is a little bit difficult because Dino Tamer Brand is, by the time you draw it, is usually pretty unlikely to be active even. It's just a 7-mana 2/4 because you're shuffling bombs into the deck, unless you're like drawing bombs at the same time, but then you're taking more damage. And the thing about this variation of Bomb Warrior as opposed to the Risky Skipper Armorsmith version of Bomb Warrior is while it doesn't have just the raw armor gain as the Risky Skipper Armorsmith package, it does have more consistent like super early game removal. Talking about like turns 1, 2, and 3, because you play both the Sword and Board as well as the Minefield. SilverName's is a little different. He cuts things like Sword and Board and adds in the Ringmaster Watley kind of package, I guess you could call it, which basically just gives you a Clockwork Goblin on top of your Deathwing Mad Aspect. So, and Horde Pillager, I guess you can throw that in there, but that's not an extra inclusion for it. Watley just kind of supports it as far as the deck goes. So a little bit less removal, but a little bit more consistency of draw. SilverName does have weapon removal, and the consistency of draw and being more threat dense, slightly more threat dense, seems like it's going to give him a slight advantage. But I wouldn't call this one huge. I wouldn't say either player has a huge advantage going up in the mirror. It's just SilverName has slightly better tech inclusions.
Yep, that makes sense. You know, SilverName, if he felt like he was going to go up against other people with his lineup, seems like he's tech things very slightly to be good against that kind of stuff. You know, we talked about the Ringmaster Watley off of a random generation and how it was really powerful. It seemed like, you know, this time SilverName wanted to actually be in his deck. So here we go. Bomb Warrior Mirror. And, you know, TJ and I have casted a handful of these throughout the Grandmaster years, and they can get quite explosive, if you will. But also, there could be a lot of nothing happening. So we'll find out. Both players starting out with the Corsair cache, though, so that does lean more towards the action being a little quicker.
Yep. Wow, they're just throwing their cards. I mean, these early turns are not too much is going on. We'll put it that way. They don't have too many options, not a lot to think through. This game is not really about the early game tempo. It's about how you divvy up your resources in the mid to late game, and looking at sort of like bomb break points in the mid to late stages of the game. Right now, I think, you know, SilverName has Blastmaster Boom, and you know, while he isn't on the play, he did have to use the coin to get out this Wrench Caliber. Even if he's able to get out Blastmaster Boom slightly behind here, it's still going to be an advantage, because that card is the one that can completely swing the matchup, especially with this many bombs being shuffled in before the Blastmaster Boom is played. We could just see this game end on turn 7 or slightly after, once the Boombots have a chance to explode.
Yeah, and, you know, drawing bombs this early can be a blessing in disguise as long as you don't dip too low here to stop that Blastmaster Boom on the other side of your opponent as well. So things looking okay for SilverName to start things off. SYF drawing removal, which he doesn't need. Bomb Warrior doesn't play many minions in general. And so the mirror, that card is a little bit more awkward to use, although sometimes situationally pretty solid. SYF got some light confirmation that there's no weapon destruction, so he's go ahead and equip that. SilverName could draw it right here, but chances are that he doesn't have it. He would have to get very fortunate. And now the bombs just start swinging, TJ. Like I said, like this could be a really slow one or it could be a quick one. This one's starting to ramp up.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Armageddon is relatively limited for both players. They got a couple shield blocks, the natural hero power, and Galakrond, but that's pretty much it. So when both players have Wrench Caliber starts without very heavy defensive starts, it comes down to they're both drawing cards aggressively. They're both shuffling bombs in aggressively. And
Right.
one player will have Blastmaster Boom and one player won't at this point, which seems pretty big. So there are now, that is the fourth bomb being shuffled in the deck, I believe. Yep, that is bomb number 4. So even if one bomb is drawn, Blastmaster Boom will still be fully loaded. And I wonder if there's anything else that, if SilverName wants to do anything here. It's only a 1/1, and none of the other cards line up efficiently at all. And here's
now
Blastmaster
it's like
Boom.
hold your breath for the Blastmaster Boom. Nothing from SYF's side. He's got nothing. He's going to pass. And that's a great sign for SilverName. Yeah, the landing pad has been cleared. Blastmaster Boom, you are clear for liftoff. As maximum Boombots get summoned in, SYF can deal with this board, but, you know, how much damage is he going to take in the process?
Yeah. So there's... Okay. Just Brawl, I suppose. I mean, he's going to be pretty likely dead. If 5 Boombots survive, which is the best... Or if all 6 Boombots die, I guess is the best one, and one that gets absorbed, so there'd be 5 Boombots going to base. That's 5 times 2.5.
Oh my gosh! That was crazy. Putting him down to almost within bomb range.
Yep.
You
So that's
gotta, like,
slightly
armor up
above
at this
the
point,
average,
right? With
right?
sword and
Because
board?
the average is like 13 damage or 12.5 damage.
Yeah, pretty close to it.
Oh,
Gotta
geez.
gain some life here. Can't be at 6. But at the same time, SilverName is not exactly in clear skies either. He's within scary range as well. Finds the acidic swamp ooze.
So if this goes face for 4, he
Yeah,
wins.
4 it's lethal. 25%
25%.
out right now.
Yep.
I kind of like it. Mine
Yep.
feels awkward.
1. Okay. So you ooze and Horde Pillager?
Yeah.
And then there
The
are...
really scary thing is you're not armoring up either, so you're still within 2 bomb range yourself. But that's always going to be the case if SYF still has any kind of weapon to keep going.
Yeah, so there are 6 bombs now in SYF's deck. 6? Can he dodge it? No!
Oh, he cannot. Just too many. Whew. And SYF loses the Bomb Warrior Mirror, which means we're going to game number 5 to find out who is joining us for the top 4.
Oh man, Bomb Warrior mirrors, especially these ones, right? The Risky Skipper ones can get a little bit weird because you can take a defensive stance and like save up your this armor gain package, I suppose, and try and get out of range. But when both players are playing this version, which is pretty linear, with it's pretty much removal, card draw, and bombs. That's the deck. It can get very explosive very quickly. There were 11 bombs total between both players' decks at the end, and they were both 10 or less health, so they can get exciting. But now SilverName does have that Hunter left against the Bomb Warrior, and I'm pretty worried for it, honestly. He does have an Acidic Swamp Ooze in his Highlander Hunter. He also has Zephyrus, but there's a time when they're useful, and at a certain point there's like diminishing returns on these types of cards, because as soon as there's a few bombs shuffled into the deck, the Zephyrus isn't even active. The Acidic Swamp Ooze isn't as beneficial because your Highlander cards are already broken until you draw some bombs. And this type of Bomb Warrior also has a little bit of additional early game removal to stop you from snowballing. So I feel like this one's going to be a tough one for SilverName. He has to try and find early aggression. He has to hope that SYF misses the ability to shuffle in bombs and then close out the game with Zephyrus or Dino Tamer Brand before anything's shuffled into the deck.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's been real fast and furious so far as we go into game number 5. This one might be quick too. Who knows? Hunter off to a pretty decent start. I believe no game has gone longer than turn 8, TJ. It's been real fast so far. I might be mistaken, but if memory serves, it's
I think you're right.
Real quick.
Yeah. I think maybe SilverName technically conceded on turn 9, but even then, that's that one could be incorrect. So Intrepid Initiate plus the Pack Tactics looks like played early on in the game. Pack Tactics. SIF does have a reasonable response to this if he wants it with the Armor Up coin plus Shield Slam. There's no secrets in the deck from SilverName that would stop this from being a play, but just wants to spend the mana. Getting that Wretch Caliber
SilverName got the adorable Infestation just to add a little bit extra punch to this turn. And SYF possibly was thinking about, like, can I get away with getting this weapon? Because this weapon's also really crucial for the mid stages of the game. Because by shuffling bombs in, you have duplicates in SilverName's deck and try to disable his Zephyrus and Dino Tamer Brand coming up on really pivotal turns. But, will he take too much damage in the process? Because instead of dealing with this Intrepid Initiate, he's now taking additional damage, and it's outside the range of Shield Slam. So he would have to use another card instead.
So could go...
Helps.
Is there a pressure plate in the deck? No, there's not from SilverName. So could go Evil Quartermaster coin Shield Slam. Obviously, it could still do that play with coin, Evil Quartermaster, Shield Slam. But looks like really wants to save this coin, most likely because he wants to brawl next turn. If he
Right,
goes with
right.
Evil Quartermaster, Coin Shield Slam, the board is still wide. There's still 1/1s that SilverName can then bypass this one minion that he has on board. Also, there's the secret in play that he needs to think about. So if he wants to like diffuse the secret at any point, Brawl just makes the most sense because this is probably the highest value it's going to get.
Yep, it makes sense to me, and I can definitely get on board with that because SLA is trying to go for a decisive, swift momentum shift by having the Brawl consume a ton of cards from SilverName. Then Hunter might stall out and not have enough damage. And it's kind of like one of those interesting dynamics where because SilverName didn't extend further onto the board, SYF says, I'm not going to Brawl then because you didn't really provide enough reasons for me to. It's kind of this weird song and dance, and now SilverName's getting even more damage in. This chip damage is really going to add up.
Yeah, and also, if Zephyrus was in the hand, SYF was dead, right? 4 damage on board plus...
Right, Saboteur.
Saboteur would have been 1 off. It'd be 4 damage on board plus 10, so it would have been 14.
Oh, right, because he can't hero power.
But he would have been put to
Zephyrus
1, and there would be
yeah.
no way for him to clear the board and protect from at least fully clear the board and protect. So that was a risky play, but I guess at a certain point, like Zephyrus is always going to be a threat, right? Especially when you're this low. And Dire Tamer Brand's always going to be a threat. So his ability to shuffle in bomb after bomb is probably why he went for this Wrench Caliber the turn before, and just hope he can find the follow-up with armor gain.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Evil Quartermaster and the Shield Slam, and I'm looking at how this Intrepid Initiate has been on the board since turn 1. And I'm looking at the Warrior life total, TJ. I am sweating here for SYF here. I'm not really sure how he pulls himself out. And this Brawl could also still go badly if the Whoopentinger that got turned to a 3-3 from Pack Tactics survived. He's not out of the woods just yet.
It's a 3-3! Oh no!
Oh boy! Oh no! You can see the devastation on SYF's face. Bomb
And
being
the
drawn
bomb,
too, which means
means-
Zephyr's draw is lethal.
Oh.
Okay.
So SYF can stabilize next turn. A lot of armor gain with Shield Slam, but the Imprisoned Fellhound is still going to be coming out next turn, and that's a lot of damage. So it looks like the secret that's pulled is Freezing Trap, which is actually probably good news for SYF. Even though he doesn't know it's Freezing Trap, it's the one secret that he's probably not going to have to worry about. Ooh, Titanic Lackey as well. That doesn't help the Imprisoned Felmaw, but it could help any of like the weapons that SilverName could draw. Could cut down some outs. But now there is a 4 mana left available. Jeez.
This is really, really close. SYF feels like he's very close to stabilizing. He found a Titanic Lackey off the top, and I'm wondering if it's even worth just using the coin for 2 armor at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going for the Evil Quartermaster. He really wants to greed this, but also get a little bit extra board tempo and stop the
Imprisoned Felmaw goes face
from being able to hit him.
If it goes face,
no.
Ooh. If it went face, that was lethal. SilverName is so close.
Very, very close. Not to mention 1 bomb in the deck, right? Or is it 2 bombs?
There are 2 bombs in the deck now.
Okay.
Zephyrus and Dante Brand are inactive, so that may have been what would push Sif into the realm of surviving this. He's got Shield Block, but 7 mana available. Freezing Trap up. Could go Shield Block, Shield Slam, Coerce. We start with Shield Block because you're always gaining the armor here. A Cutting Class. I think you just remove as much damage on the board as possible.
Yeah. I'm even willing to play the Titanic Lackey, and Hero Power just to gain maximum life.
Okay. Yeah, Zephyr's not active, so you're not worried about like Zephyr's into Cabal, Shadow Priest, or anything like that. Open the cages.
Right.
So you I don't know if you're SilverName here with 2 bombs in your deck, if you rely on it, like anything else in your deck. You just try and put most power on the board, which would mean you unleash the hounds and hero power the 1/1.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Warrior already used a brawl. SYF has demonstrated kind of a lack of ability to clear off multiple minions. There is Bladestorm in the deck, which is something to be concerned about, though, from SilverName's perspective. Even then, it still requires SYF to attack into the Dwarven Sharpshooter. But it could go horribly, horribly wrong as well. This is a gut check moment here for SilverName.
Yeah, so secrets up are Freezing Trap and Open the Cages. SYF knows it's some combination of Snake freezing and Open the Cages. Hasn't been able to.
Oh yeah. Okay. Clears off everything, keeping this the secret dynamic a little bit tricky here for SYF. Finds a brawl, which ended up being a pickup that SYF probably would have liked to have.
Dr. Boom scheme.
Boom
Oh, he
scheme?
picked it! Yes.
He needs every bit of life he can get, TJ.
So you coerce the Dwarven Sharpshooter so that Open the Cages doesn't proc? Oh, man. He doesn't even know.
I mean, he has a pretty decent idea of the way to set up 2 minions. Yeah, he knows about this possibility. He's already seen also pack tactics. And so, but just by process of elimination, there's Freezing Trap, Snake Trap, and Open the Cages. And so either one of those dynamics does not really mean that he can do much about it this turn, except for remove a minion. Goes for the 5 mana Cutting Class. Finds Dr. Boom. Does he have the time to play it? He's starting to climb back in life total.
Leox, that's an extra 2 damage. There's still 2 bombs in the deck, so Dino Tamer Brand... Dino Tamer Brand? Dino Tamer Brand is lethal!
Oh!
Zephyrus, is that lethal? Gore Howl?
That's 7 damage.
Avenging Wrath?
Plus the 4. It's 11.
Avenging Wrath? No, Avenging Wrath, he's 1 mana off Avenging Wrath.
Okay. But there is something to be said by putting your opponent down to such a low amount of life total, but it's Warrior. Warrior could keep hero powering out of the range of the Hunter.
He can't deal 9 with 7 mana, right?
I do not believe so. But I might be mistaken if I'm missing something at the moment.
I mean, Avenging Wrath is lethal like less than 1% of the time.
Yeah, but could he also try to manipulate his efforts to give him Pyroblast? So he hero powers first,
and then Pyro.
Zephyr should be able to see it.
Yep,
And he gets
Pyroblast.
Pyroblast. He's looking at 7 life. He's like, Warrior can get out of that range. Is it Doomhammer just to play the 8 damage over 2 turns? Takes the Pyroblast. SYF knows about this now. He can get out of range just by raw armor with the Dr. Boom scheme and the hero power, but he still needs to deal with the board state. I don't think he can.
If only he had been able to get that Dr. Boom scheme like 7 turns ago.
Is there... So there's one more secret still, and it's Freezing Trap. I'm kind of thinking if there's anything that this Ethereal Lackey could give that does it all, that clears the board and gives him armor.
What now?
I just don't think so.
I'm not seeing it. I am not seeing it. You could do one or the other. Dr. Boom scheme. 4 mana armor up. 4 mana armor up again. And he's going to attack and hope for Snake Trap? No, he's attacking and hoping that it's not Pyroblast. And SYF goes for the Freezing Trap activation. SilverName takes a deep breath, recognizing that he has barely escaped. And for good measure, Dino Tamer Brandon off the top. SilverName will be joining us in the top 4. And SYS elimination means that China is no longer represented in the World Championships, as Europe once again has flexed their muscles and shown that they are the region to be feared. SilverName advances to the semifinals.
And I think everybody has to agree that SilverName was a huge wild card coming into the World Championship for a multitude of reasons. He is a player that brings his own decks all the time, decks that he's comfortable with, and sometimes that works out, and sometimes that doesn't. I mean, his story throughout the year has proven exactly that, where he brought his own style of decks, a lot of Spell Mage, Highlander Mage in Season 1, qualified to the World Championship. Wasn't able to fully keep up with the meta game in Season 2, and got relegated. So I don't think anybody really knew what to expect from SilverName, but one thing's for certain is a lot of people are picking his lineup, his and SIF's lineup, as one of the best in the field. And now his play has been incredibly clean. He's backing that up as well. So if these decks are incredible for the meta, SilverName himself said he was going to bring decks that he's comfortable with, so he's comfortable with them. And he's winning. I mean, he's playing clean. This is a scary opponent to be going up against coming out of Group B with